All right, this is Chris Waddell. Welcome to Living It. Today, I'm with Daron Rahlves. Daron was three-time Olympian in alpine skiing, one-time Olympian in freestyle skiing. We will get to that because that seems like a huge departure. Winner of the Hahnenkamm, winner of numerous World Cups. I want to go back just a little bit before we really get into the nuts and bolts of stuff. When did you get fast? When did you know you were fast?
Chris, it started just making laps here in Tahoe when I was younger. Just basically race my friends down the mountain, and my parents put me on a ski team up here just to like have that same sort of like fun with someone else besides mom and dad. And it just got to be like back then it was like who can get down the mountain faster, who can go over the most terrain, and link up some like fun lines and jumps and all that. I remember a buddy of mine, Salty, he and I on a powder day kept jumping off the chair so we can hit this one like cliff, at the bottom.
And how old are you at this point?
This is probably like 10 years old.
Okay.
And the lift op's like, how you guys make it around so quickly, like every lap here? And we're like, oh, we're just straight lining, we're just going fast. Like, seems a little quick, your turnaround. And we're like, okay, we still jumped off the chair, but we hung out and waited because we didn't want to ski anything else. We just want to hit this one clip. But it was just, I don't know, from an early age, I got into, I was always competitive, with jet skiing, did some jet ski racing, soccer and all that. But skiing really just took a hold of me just because the thrill of being outside and just like the variety and just what you could do on skis. I'm still learning these days, and it's just so much fun. But I really kind of like go with that motto of like find out what you're made of, make it happen. That's kind of what I try to live by my whole entire life.
So you didn't jump into the racing part immediately. I mean, it sounds like it was big mountain. The mountain was your teacher in a lot of ways, right? You were just doing whatever you could for fun. But when did the racing stuff happen? And I'd imagine it wasn't just racing, it was racing and having all the other fun you can on the mountain. But when did the racing start?
Sure. Well, I mean, right off the bat, like when I was really young, I did some NASCAR races. Like my grandparents, my parents would just put us in there. We did some family races and all that. My sister raced as well. And then you kind of like, get on like a ski team and get that bug of like trying to go fast a little bit in some gates. And then, so about like 12 years old is when I really started kind of, I'd say every weekend, probably had a race, through the wintertime. And then 13 kind of was like that next step. And then I kind of like really got committed to the whole racing path by leaving Lake Tahoe area and going back east to Vermont to a ski academy there.
So did you grow up in Tahoe or did you grow up in San Francisco or where did you grow up?
Yeah, it's called the East Bay, so close to San Francisco.
Okay.
So grew up there. Like when I was 12, my parents bought a house up in Alpine Meadows, and that's when we moved there full time and started going to school up here. I just did like a year and a half of actually school in Tahoe, where I was skiing every afternoon after school on the weekends. And then I just, I was one of the top kids at 13. GS was my strongest event and solid at like slalom. But I like the speed. I gravitated towards like that super G downs. And back then, like when you're 12, 13, they had like little legit downhills to run, for races. So it was pretty cool. Growing up, at that age, just going fast. And then I really didn't have aspirations to be a professional ski racer. It was more just I wanted to see, like have a great opportunity and see, what I could do in the sport and just like chip away every year. And I guess around when I was like 16, 17 is when I made like the full commitment to it and really pushed hard for a couple of years and had a goal of making the national team and then racing World Cup and it's just like every few years just had made next step and it just took off from there.
How old were you when you went back east? Because you said, and was that a hard decision to leave Tahoe and to go back east? I mean, the snow's a little bit harder back east.
It's snow's harder, less snow, less terrain, smaller mountains. But the core racing was back east in the US. Like all the top kids in my age group and the age group ahead of me seemed to be coming out of the East Coast. Guys like these guys like Eric Schlopey, Casey Puckett. I mean, Jeremy Nobis, he was going to GMDS. AJ Kitt was like the big standout, and Doug Lewis from Green Mountain Valley School, and that was the school I ended up going to. I looked at Burke Mountain Academy, looked at Stratton, the big three, and then GMDS, and that just felt better to me, and it had more variety, a bigger mountain to ski. And I met some of the coaches and teachers there, and some of the student athletes. It was a better connection for me. So I went back when I was 14 years old, left mom and dad, full boarding student, having to figure out how to do your own laundry and just balance a checkbook, and just sign up for the races, send the checks in. I mean, you have like your coaches and like a dorm parent helping you out with that stuff, but it was like a big change, because I had everything done for me at that age, all the way up to 14 till I went back east. But now with my own kids, I'm like, you guys got to figure this out now. Like you're doing laundry, you're doing dishes, you're doing like all these little things, like chip in, help the family out. And
How old are your kids?
they're 13. I got twins, a girl Miley and a boy is Drayson.
Okay. So you went back at at 14. What age, what grade was that?
Ninth grade.
Ninth
Sorry,
grade. So you were,
the trucky train's going by right now outside.
all right. Well, we get a little ambiance. This is good. Like this
It's
is
great.
authentic.
I'm at my wife's studio right here. She's in the fitness world, and I actually do some virtual training. I've been doing a lot of that throughout the summer and coming into the ski season. So this is kind of like the little place here in downtown Truckee we got.
Oh, nice. Okay. Well, it's cool. I like the background too. That's awesome.
Oh yeah, this is all like original, like historic wall. I mean, you can't put anything in the walls here. They don't want to. I mean, it crumbles a little bit. All the mortar between the bricks, it's a little sandy. But it's a cool little spot. And then downtown Truckee is great. But right now it's like I've been doing these virtual workouts like from 5:30 to 6:30. Get out here about 7 p.m. and the town's ghost town. I mean, it's just crazy right now with the restrictions, with COVID and all that. I mean, you can do takeaway from some of the restaurants, but it's a different scene this year. I mean, I've never seen it like this quiet.
And hopefully you won't again, really. I mean, hopefully we won't in our lifetime. So let's get back to the racing though. It's 16, 17. So by the time you were like a junior, senior, you had decided that this was it, that you wanted to go and make the national team. What did that mean to you when you made that decision? What was the switch that you flipped, or what were the things that you had to do to change what you'd been doing before?
Well, I came from the West, like really strong skier, top three almost every race. Went back east, I couldn't even make top 20. I couldn't even make junior JOs, junior Olympics, the first year, and that was crushing. Like that was tough. Like I was on my own trying to figure it out. Like I mean, the skis, like trying to tune my skis on the ice, and having prepared for that kind of condition, which is something I never had to deal with in the West, and it was a rugged year. And so, but instead of getting, I just deterred from or degraded, from like this lack of fast skiing and struggling, it kind of made me buckle down a little more and figure out like, okay, I got to work harder now physically. I got to put more time in when you watch a video, like figure out like, how to set my equipment best. And I was really small too, so it didn't really help out. I was a freshman. I was 95 pounds, 4'11", going into high school, and just there's me and this guy Arn, my buddy Arn. We were the smallest kids. We had a competition, and I was the first one to go over 100 pounds, like right before Christmas break. But it was like, we were just getting picked on, and it was, I guess, it was good because it kind of made us scrappy, and that's kind of what I've taken through my whole career. Just having to figure out how to do it as someone smaller and all that. But I got 17. I ended up winning the NORAM Super 2 title, and I was like, all right, figuring I'd be on the U.S. team then, but I wasn't named, and had to kind of like take 2 more years after high school, just grinding it out and then figuring out my own program. And I joined two brothers, the Phillips brothers, Harper and Briggs Phillips, who Harper was on the team with me as well for a couple of years. And we did it on our own, and it was pretty awesome. It was definitely gratifying. Like, it made me appreciate my coaches so much more when I did everything set up before and then after, I made the national team, because we were down in New Zealand, the three of us, and setting our own courses, doing video between, you know, among just us, take like 2 laps and switch it up. And then we're doing everything, just like the grind was for real. Figured out how much it took to like set even good training to get something out of it. So
And so you
that
were
was for
coaching
full
each
season.
other.
Yeah, coaching each other, setting up like our own courses, having to get all the drills, everything kind of like organized. And we did have some help from a friend of mine, Jim Schaefer from
Yeah.
he went to UVM. He was actually running the Mount Hut ski program down there, and we had a coach lined up that was coming with us, but he dropped us like a week out before our trip. And so we were like, hey, we're still going down there. We ended up figuring it out, and Jim basically like supplied the gates, supplied the drills, helped us out with training space. And but we were pretty much like, hey, you guys get up there and you're on your own. And we did it. That was pretty cool.
When you look back on that, are those defining moments? Like, is your success a result of having been 4'11", 95 pounds, having not been named to the team when you thought you should be named to the team, and then having to do it on your own? Do you feel like what did it do for you? How did it change your perspective, like your mental perspective, when you made it to the World Cup or when you were on the US team?
Chris, I was lucky with my parents being able to support what I wanted to do. And they kind of gave me an ultimatum, though. It's like, we'll give you a year after high school and you got to make it happen. And I didn't. I still had some good results, but I wasn't quite there. And I had one coach that kind of lobbied for me pretty hard, saying, hey, like, I could see, Daron's got this potential, and I just needs another year. And it was like a do or die year. And but I think all that stuff, like you just mentioned, like the timeline and what I went through, it helped me, just fine tune kind of my approach, and just found out that hard work, just having it's tough. I mean, you can't always have a positive attitude. It's a grind. You have these ups and downs, and but it was a sweet taste when you did well. I just wanted more of that, and I was trying to figure out how I can be more consistent and do it. And I think it was once I made the U.S. team, I had a pretty quick transition from going from C team in 93, 94 to 95. I was on the A team, top 30 in the World Cup. And so, and not, many others were like, you know, on that same kind of fast track. But I kind of established myself pretty quickly. And so maybe it was better that I had 2 years on my own, just trying to develop a little more. And then I was under the gun. I wasn't like, and plus I wasn't trying to make the U.S. national team for the jacket. I didn't care about that stuff. I wanted to be at that point like, hey, can I be the best? Can I be the fastest, skier down the mountain just one time? That was my biggest kind of driving goal.
That was the goal that you set? I want to be the fastest. What was the intermediate goal though? Did you, in order to make the team, you had to meet a criteria, right? It wasn't discretionary. You had to be ranked somewhere in the world, right? In order to do that, what was the ranking you needed?
Yeah, I don't even know. It's been a long time. It was just basically like you gotta, just be one of the top kids in the U.S. to, just show you have potential, and working hard. And I think, it's just like, yeah, there's results, but there's also like, okay, like you gotta look at this like this athlete and see, what they might have in them. And maybe I just, showed that I had some, relentless fight, and I put a lot of work into it. Like I was pretty much the first one on the hill, last one off, most days. And and spent a lot of time on my skis, just getting those things, as dialed as I could. And that made a difference. Like as a ski racer, you don't want any doubt. As a professional athlete relying on any equipment, you don't want any doubt in that. And so I tried to like control that as much as I could and zero any of that out. So I kind of put the extra time into that as well. But I also like gravitated towards like the fast guys. Like I wanted to like learn from them. And so say like when I first made the team, like, okay, you could start doing some super G training, some downhill training. We got Tommy Moe, AJ Kitt, Kyle Rasmussen, the top three guys in the US ski team. And every day I was like hunting them down. I was trying to like go out there and training and beat them. And it didn't happen right away, but then there'd be like a run where I'd be fastest that day. And like, well, I mean, you start chipping away like that and you just build confidence. But I learned a lot from those guys. And AJ he was kind of one of like the guys that kind of like was that role model for me, mentor. And he really tried to like, I mean, he gave his time a little bit to like help me out, kind of show me the ropes.
AJ Kitt. So AJ was 5 years older than you. Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was there and he won a World Cup, had 3 World Cup victories taken away from him.
Brutal.
But
Yeah.
but he was one of the guys who was really chipping away. And as an American, right? As an American, there was a trough basically of like downhill and really super G results where there just weren't any. And he was really one of the guys who broke through to establish that the Americans could be successful in a European sport and in a European discipline.
AJ really started shining, on the World Cup circuit, and then Mo just came out of nowhere and nailed the Olympics in '94, and that was like, I mean, there's a lot of excitement around the team at that point. And then Kyle '95 wins Vangen, Kitzbuhel. That was my big breakthrough. 4th place in Kitzbuhel Super G behind Kyle. He was 3rd. But the guy in 5th was Gunther Mader. He was the one guy, like the Austrian guy, that I really paid attention to a lot. I like his style, kind of what he brought to the hill, and he was really strong in all disciplines. But his downhill Super G GS style kind of like more resonated with me, and I was just like, I can't believe I just nipped this guy that I've been like basically like studying over the years, right? And like now I'm in
He
like
becomes a hero,
I'm in
right?
this, yeah, I'm in this like top group now. That was a pretty amazing feeling. But that was '95, and it took me 5 years before I bettered that result. I had a number of top tens, 6th, 7th places, but I never kind of cracked in at the podium. And then back in Norway, Kvitfjell, like that's where things just turned around. I ended up winning my first downhill and did the same thing the next day. And so that was kind of like when you finally do it, you believe that you can, that you belong. And that's like the biggest thing. I love seeing guys like now, like RCS.
Yeah.
Ryan Cochran-Siegel takes his first win this year in Bormio in the Super G, and he knows if he does the right thing, he executes top to bottom, he can be the fastest in the world. And that was kind of like one of the best feelings, I guess, to have for me, and for any athlete to feel that is pretty amazing.
Was that when you felt like you belonged really? Was when you finally won, or did you feel like you belonged prior to that? Because that's the hardest part, right? I mean, sometimes it's so easy to go to a ski race and to feel like, oh, these guys are so good and those guys are so good. And I'm here, I'm in the race, but I'm not really in the race. On the World
Yeah.
Cup, when did you feel like you were in the race and people should actually notice you instead of you noticing them?
Yeah, I think it was that pretty much that first win. I mean, it was, you just, I was 4th. I'm like, ooh, that was close. That was great. But, I got to be more consistent, and I got to just bust through here and make this next step. And that was like the first time where that win, that leading up to that win, that was the first time I really focused on me, nothing else. I wasn't like really paying attention to what the Austrians or the Swiss were doing, the Norwegians. It was like, this is what I gotta do, and I'm gonna ski it like this, and fully focused on my plan of attack, my approach, the line I was gonna ski, how I was gonna ski it. And then the best feeling was like the next day. All right, I just did it, and I called my buddy Zach Christ, and he was my roommate for years, and we came up together on the team, and he ended up retiring um, and went to ski cross, but he was the first person I called, that wasn't like there at the event, or first person I talked to that wasn't there, and it was just like fun to share it with him. And he just told me, he's like, hey, you've already proven yourself being the fastest, in the world. Like, everything else is like ice on the cake now. Like, go out and do it again. Why not? And the next day I had this like crazy confidence, this flow. I mean, I didn't get much sleep at all. I was just up all night, but I was on this high, and just like, it was probably the closest to perfect I've ever had for a run that second day. And it was just, I remember that, like, the feeling was so good, and just I was just locked in.
What does that mean to be locked in? I mean, you say you were so locked in. What does it mean? What does it feel like? Does it feel like something before you go through the start? Does it feel like something when you wake up in the morning? Is it like pushing out of the gate? What is it?
Man, right off the bat, I was just like, here we go. Like, I mean, just I'm gonna just nail this thing another, I'm gonna ski even better than I did yesterday. And just, yeah, this, just the feeling there. Just, there's certain places. I don't know. You probably have the same feelings as places you go. It's like just how things kind of like, I mean, the food you have, or just like the smell, the feel of just being around this little area, and just the hill was so fun to ski too. And I think that's one thing, like, for me growing up, like, just skiing a lot of terrain, and just being always like searching out the most kind of crazy run I could find. I mean, I never really liked being on like just a straight flat, like pitch groomer. I want to have terrain and stuff to work off. And this is what this downhill was like in Norway. And it just, being locked into me was just focused, knowing like I was on the right track all day. And then just when I was skiing, I was just so connected with the hill, and the flow was there. And all I was thinking about was like just making really strong, clean turns, generating power, taking the speed, and looking for speed, like good aerodynamics. And it was just everything was just clicking. It was just one of those most fun runs. Like, we're just, you're pushing, you're going for it, but it was just a super nice flow, and it was kind of like easy skiing.
Well, it sounds like it was that fun. And it also sounds like it was liberation too. I mean, like you'd finally freed yourself from like having to answer to the Austrians and the Swiss and whether they cared or not, but it freed you up in that respect. It sounds like that's what happened, is like, okay, now it doesn't matter. Now I just do what I do, and it's good enough. It's good enough to be competitive. Did you hear anybody say anything? Was there surprise from the people of like, well, Daron won, and I mean, you went from being 4'11", but you're still 5'8", right? So you're not the biggest guy on the World Cup too. Was there surprise from the other competitors that you were the guy on the top step of the podium?
I think so, and like that's why I really wanted to go out the second day and prove it wasn't just a fluke. That was actually a little extra motivation too. And it was just, I was able to better that run before. There's so much can go on at speed and downhill, and you know even hit like a bump, like losing your ski and kicked out wide or something like that. You lose a couple of tenths, and time goes by quick. You can't make up, but it was just, I was on that edge, and I was just on that just killer line that just, I was having to hustle. I always like those, like to ski where I feel like I need to hustle to just to stay in, or stay on the race line.
As opposed to just staying in your tuck, right?
Yeah, if you don't have time, well, I mean, always fighting. I was always trying to like just, I was just thinking, always try and keep the hands together, and you just notice it, like, go down the road and going 70 miles an hour, put your arm out the window, and just feel the drag right there, just on your arm, and the way you can like change things by just like turning your wrist, or just getting a good feel for it. I always play with that, and then it'd be automatic, like what I had to do when I'm racing. But it's crazy how much like just like I just call it the air brake. If you're standing up, your arms are out, your elbows are out, or just you're not in a good aero position, how much time you actually lose. So I was like super focused on that. My benefit being smaller, like one, I was like really strong for my like size and weight, but like I have less surface area, so I can cut through the wind better. So I'm like looking at like the positives, like what's my advantage over everybody else? Like I'm not gonna be fast as these guys. These guys are weighing 210, 220 pounds on the flats, but like I got to figure out how to go faster into these flats, be better aerodynamics, work on gliding. I mean, I jumped on atomic test track a bunch whenever we had a chance, and no one other athletes were really doing that. I was just trying to jump in there with the test team and work on my own skills. And so I guess going back to like being a hard worker, like I was looking at every detail, like what I needed to do to improve myself. So then I got in the gate, it was all up to me. It wasn't like, oh, I just don't have this, you know. And I think that's a big difference from the top athletes that are consistently fast and confident and pulling down the results is just knowing that they belong in that league, you know. If they put down their best run, they're going to be untouchable. That's kind of how I felt, you know, in certain races.
You believed that you had that competitive advantage, and it was because of your preparation. It was because of your aerodynamics, your ability to be more aerodynamic in places where other guys weren't necessarily. This was also, oh, go ahead.
And I wanted to find lines that no one else could ski. To me, that was like a challenge. Also, like, how can I like? I mean, and I'd always like try and figure something out, but maybe even save it just for race day. Because if you show it on your training run, then it's fast. Like everybody's gonna study it and change it and be right there. So in downhill, it was kind of a game a little bit because you wanted to save something, but in another hand, like, yeah, can I pull it off? And I get to the point where I'm like, well, I'm gonna trim this down just on race day, or run this out a little more and do a little something different. And it's like Bodie, one year in Kitzbuhel, he just crushed the top and chipped up all this like line on the inside. And that was his last training run. He was really fast, maybe a ton of time, but then it's like he showed his cards, right? Too soon. This is after I was racing, but he had a chance of winning, there that day. And like a lot of other guys took that line and he didn't have that advantage anymore. So it's like, but we played a lot of those games a little bit and try to save something for race day, just as long as you feel if they can pull it off.
Now, did you feel like
As
you knew this kind of stuff? Because downhill, obviously, I mean, there's so many different lines that you can take in a downhill. But you'd been a skier who skied so much of the mountain, just so many different lines throughout your lifetime, throughout the whole growing up. Did you feel like you had that, like you'd figured something out, like you saw something differently as a result of your experience growing up?
Probably that too, but there's a lot of studying too, like looking at like physics, experiments, like all kinds of things. And remember Eva Tordokens, her father, like had this experiment. It was pretty interesting. It was like there was like just a 45-degree angle, flat, just pitch, where you put a ball up here and roll it down and like have like a long run out flat. And there was another one that was more like a big old bend. And so the balls at the same time, the two ball bearings that drop at the same time, and you'd think like the shorter distance would like you know like make it to the finish line faster, but it's actually the one that like accelerated faster, had this like dip to it, but was going like longer distance on that track. That actually came out ahead. So that kind of stuff, like I looked into. I was trying to figure that out on the ski hill. How can I like gain more speed here and still not lose it out by going a little longer line, or you give the gain some places. And to me it was really fun trying to like really be analytical and think it through of like, where's gravity going to be the most beneficial to me and how can I use it to my advantage, and is it cutting off the line here, is it going like letting it run out longer there. There's all kinds of like studying really. And I really enjoyed that part of it, like just picking it apart. And it's, but that one experiment, I mean, I know what it's called, but it was just like, that was from early on, that really stood out to me as a way to kind of like try and gain speed on the hill.
Gains-
So
Find that steep section. If you're going to accelerate up to your max speed, it's going to benefit you later
yeah,
on.
but even like looking at like even from the start to like the first gate, like how can I cut off like 5 feet of line, or the finish line, like looking down on the snow. I was a fan of like inspecting. I like even lay down the snow and be like, my head be just about 2 feet off the ground instead of standing up. And then you get a better like read, like seeing the contours of the hill. And hey, if I just, I mean, let the hill take me this way, that's just gain a little more. And when you're down to one, hundredth of a second for like a win, I mean, that's with the aerodynamics and just cutting off like a foot or two here and there, that's going to add up. So I think that was kind of like what I loved about downhill. Like you said, there's a huge like variety of like space, distance in the turns, and where you can like, where the skiers are going. You look at it down, even like especially younger like kids, like it's crazy. You see like a Super G race for like the juniors, and there's like 20 feet difference in lines. In World Cup, maybe there's like 10 feet difference in lines, but I want to be on that inside of the 10 feet, like try and trim it down where I could.
Cut it down as much as possible. Mentally, so Kitzbuhel, you won both races back to back, but then that's the end of the season, right?
Yeah, that was in a season. Actually, we went from there to Bormio for a World Cup finals, and I had a top 10 there too. So that was, yeah, I had three like great races right at the end. And it was like, oh, I want to keep going. Like, let's keep the season going here. I just figured it out. That's the hard part, then it's like over, like, okay, gotta wait till next year. But that was a good motivating factor right there to just do what I could. I mean, I could get a little break, but just work hard and like, okay, I'm gonna keep this rolling. That's when things like started happening for me. And that was 2000.
So that was 2000. What did you do stuff differently during the summertime, during your summer practice? Because you're skiing during the summer, you're doing dry land. Did you approach that differently at all?
Not really that drastically, it was just at that point it was more quality than quantity. I think I stopped going to Mount Hood around then because I wanted to like focus more on a good long break and then go to New Zealand and Chile where we had more like winter like conditions, something similar that I'd be, able to get good feelings back from the boots and skis. Like Mount Hood is great for volume and getting a lot of like training in. But at that point I was like, I just need a little extra break, and I forced myself not to train till like maybe like in mid-July. So when others are like really cranking away, I was waiting. I was still being really active. I was on the water, riding my moto, and doing all this stuff. So I was challenging myself athletically and mentally, and physically. But I wasn't on like a grinding program that was hard to maintain through the summer. And I remember like I felt like I was behind the eight ball a little bit, and so I really focused, from like end of July coming into like October in the Solden races where I was really kind of like on a good program, motivated and hungry, and that was just something good for me. So maybe like just you learn kind of like you have to have that like passion. I've never felt like I was burned out in skiing. Maybe there's a time where I feel like, yeah, I benefit from this break. It's gonna make me more hungry. But it wasn't like, oh, I just need to get off skis. Like I was off the race course and I was like free skiing until the lift shut down. And I was never like now I'm skiing through the whole summer still, on certain days. Like I'm way into backcountry, hiking for turns, and I never had that when I was racing. I think it's but just the way the equipment's changed and everything. I'm blown away like what I still find like these days, like still find awesome skiing just outside the resorts, and you just got to work for it a little bit more, but it feels good to kind of be more immersed in nature and all that. And I think as a ski racer having some of that knowledge and that would have been great too, but I mean the path I was on worked pretty well.
Now, 2001 in some ways was another big breakthrough for you, right? Can you talk us through the World Championship Super G in 2001?
Yeah, well, the weekend before was like the big step because I
Okay.
was third in Kitzbuhel in downhill, and it was like it was Austrian podium. Hermeyer won, uh, Werner Franz a second. I tied with Stefan Eberharder in third, but they cut me out of the front page of the paper. I was on the outside of Eberharder, and they're like, "Yeah, we'll just keep like our three Austrians, 1, 2, 3 in Kitzbühel." Like they were top three, but here's an American Daron, like he was third, but we'll just chop him out of that like front page paper. I was like, come on, like I just put my life on the line, at a great race, and I want a little respect and for that. And that kind of, but that right there was just, I was on a high. I think being on the podium in Kitzbühel was a lifelong dream, and it just infused so much energy, and just fire in me. And I came into St. Anton with that kind of, I was on a high, I was rolling, and the first race was a Super G, and it was definitely, I was surprised. Like, I mean, the top guys, Herman and Eberharder, 1, 2. Herman, he was second actually, but never really was off the top step in Super G for a couple of years there.
He was dominant for a good long while. Like,
Big step ahead, like physically and but just he would attack like no one else would. And that was just crazy. I mean, to do it, my two favorite places to be fast was Austria, then the U.S. I mean, Austria is the place. It's just that's number one. That was number one focus for me. I want to have my best races in Austria just because the sport's so big over there, and you're on their home turf. And as an American, you're like the underdog. We have 4 or 5 coaches. They got like 15 coaches on the hill, and they got every section covered. Where we're like, we have a couple sections we're not covering, but maybe we'll partner up with the Norwegians, get Norwegians a little bit, and use some of their information and trade off because they're another small team. So it kind of felt good, like to punch it in there with such a team that was really dominant, had a lot of depth. I mean, the big superstars, but they had all the means, to like get it done.
and it was in their house.
Yeah, and that was their house, like it's their turf. And I think like, I mean, Herman was pissed that he was sacking me on Everharder for sure. And then I come down and nip them both, and he just started laughing, shaking his head like, what a joke. It's like, and that guy he was a tough competitor as far as like getting any respect from him. Like Everhard, everybody else is like, I mean, it's never fun to get beat, but shake somebody's hand and look him in the eye and like, hey, I put all out there, did what I could today. You're faster, congratulations. You beat Herman, he would just like look away as you're shaking your hand, like, really, man. And so that made me even want to like, beat him even more. Like you gotta treat me like with that kind of like disrespect. And he was a guy like, I guess, like definitely felt threatened. Like it was his throne, and he would always like do little things and mess with me. And it took me a couple of years of like battling with him to actually finally get respect. It was a tough. Like I always felt like, okay, I mean, not my enemy, but I don't like, I'm not gonna like be clap my hands and excited for you if you beat me. I'll suck it up and congratulate you, but
But you went after it on this one too, right? Because this is the one where you made one turn just completely on your inside ski, which is the thing that we'd been taught not to do from the time you're a little ski racer. And I went back and I watched it yesterday. In my mind, your outside ski was like up at your shoulder and like flapping at the audience. But but that was one of those. I mean, you just stuck it in there and did what you had to do. Was that kind of the mindset, and was that the mindset coming off of Kitzbühel as well?
Yeah, I mean, just really, really going for like I came into that turn as off the waterfall and a compression, and then like kind of a bank turn to fall away. It had a lot of like, changes through the whole like beginning to end of the turn. I came in there really direct and just hit some chop wrong way, just a little too hard, at a late moment, and ski kicked away from me. But I won that race from start to down there. I was hanging on from there down to the finish. I was making some mistakes. I was pretty late in the line. The skiing wasn't great after that last turn, but that's luckily I had a margin that was ahead on the up to that point that kind of saved me there. But I just that was kind of my style a little bit too, just driving it in there and getting loose a little bit. And I mean, those runs feel better too, when you're on the edge and you still pull it together or you pull it off. But it was a huge shock. I remember just coming across the finish line, wow, like I just did it in their house and already had the two fastest guys that went down in front of me. So I was pretty damn sure I was probably going to stay up there in that spot. And that was like when the shock was kind of settling in, like world champ, thinking about that. But you never want to jinx yourself. You never know in ski racing. You got to wait till the last skier comes down. And I was just definitely on pins and needles, just hanging on there.
You guys changed a little bit because I mean, you talk about this seems like a great transition to talk a little bit about Bodie as well, because you're just keeping the ski pointed down the hill. I mean, you're doing whatever you could to keep that ski pointed down the hill. And then you and Bodie, in a lot of ways, when took took the place of some of the Austrians. I think that it looks like from the outside, I don't know how it felt, but it looked like they looked at you guys and were trying to figure out what you were doing. Did you feel that shift with the two of you being so dominant?
It was a huge shift for sure, Chris. Like we used to train with those guys in Portillo. Um, we trade off, we give them some training hill space in Colorado early season for a little trade off. Like in one was a couple weeks before the world champs. They're like, yeah, you guys could come over and train some Super G. We actually got on that hill to train. You're not allowed to be on the World Cup hill like 10 days before a race. So we were there just before that blocked out window.
Mhm.
And after that, after I beat him there at Worlds and Bodie was like really coming on 0-2, scoring some great races. Our relationship changed big time, but we were always looking at the Austrians. What are they doing? They're, on hill training, their off hill fitness, like, approach and really trying to because they were a big step ahead. We were trying to really soak it up and we started figuring things out. And our sports science program really got fine tuned those couple of years, and we just started taking off. And then we all of a sudden we were not getting the prime week in Portillo like we used to, or 2 weeks. The Austrians like brought in more people, more money, and all that stuff. So we're shifted to you know the second opportunity to get there, but we had like priority before that. But money talks. Like they're gonna pay some more, then they're gonna get it. Same thing in New Zealand. We were kind of like we were always getting hosed, after that by the Austrians stepping in on our normal like training, blocks. But we had to take like the second seat.
So you're not getting the training time that you needed, but then also like the training space, like the prime hill, the best training hills and that kind of thing. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like I mean, they basically just just outbid us, as far as what we were gonna pay, what this USK team was paying. Like Austrians, like we want priority. Oh, the U.S. the Americans have that. Like, but we want it. What are they paying you? We'll pay you more. Like just the resorts and so we started. It was a good relationship to start with, and then we just saw that like there was a big shift there because we're competitive with them, and they didn't want to. Were trying to do everything they could to like have the upper hand. And but you work it out and figure it out, and we started partnering more with the Norwegians at that point, and we'd go like after the World Cup races were done, we'd be up in Norway training on the World Cup hill, like killer conditions and testing new skis and boots and trade off with them. And they came to Colorado and on our venues, so that was a great like partnership there, and they still are working together, the Americans and the Norwegians.
Right.
And I mean, that team is just, to me, that's like the strongest team right now. I mean, the Swiss, but the Norwegians have got it going on, and it's crazy because they're such a small team too.
Well, it's such a small country too. Yeah. I mean, a tiny little country that really would be more of a state. Did the Austrians, because you spent so much time like looking at them and trying to figure out, what they're doing, how they're doing it, how you might be able to do what they're doing, which is always hard, right? I mean, can you do what they're doing better than they're doing it by copying them? But
Yeah,
then was there a shift where then they started looking at you saying, hold on, these guys are doing some stuff that's different than we're doing, and it's faster. And now, I mean, which had to be swallowing a fair amount of pride too, right? Where Austrians are going, well, let's see if we can learn something from the Americans. Did that happen?
I think they did too. I mean, well, a big thing was just like in the start house. My buddy Pete Levin, we call him Baby Huey, and big old dude, he's got a t-shirt under his U.S. national team jacket, sweating, like just steam coming off of him, and just in there, raw, like, come on, D, crush this thing, and the same thing for Bodie, and we were killing it, those couple of years, and then it was like the next season, all of a sudden the Austrians have this big dude, the motivator that's in the start yelling at their ski racers, it's like, yeah, they're trying to find things like, you know, that are gonna, get them back on track.
They're pushing them out there because it's like a football mentality in some ways, right? It's like the football, like run through the wall.
Yeah, I mean, to me, my routine is like I wanted to get fired up. My, like I'm warming up enough where like I'm breathing heavy, blood's like just boiling, and I'm breathing, just like trying to calm down, get my zone. But I get this like big guy backing me up in the start, and he's just telling me how much just gonna tear this thing apart, and it was like a little extra like just push and motivator, and it was awesome like having him around, and like some guys like in the team like, oh, can you ease off, like I don't really like that, just be quiet. He's like, yeah, no problem. But for me and Bodie, it was like Huey had light it up in the start, and it was funny because the next season here come the Austrians with some guy like that, but he couldn't match what Baby Huey had, no chance. But it was kind of funny. We had a good laugh at that. But it's just, I think it was fun battling as a smaller nation in the ski world with like the top nation, the Austrians, and being in the mix. I had a lot of respect for them, every one of them. I mean, yeah, I had some great friendships with those guys, but it comes down to racing. You just want to do your best and lay it on line. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, you still gotta, high five the next guy. But like that's a little extra fire in the belly.
Well, you also know that you knew you gave it everything you had, and so then you can come back the next time and try
Yeah, and
to.
that was like one point I want to make too on that. Like those are my most satisfying races where I came down the finish line. I was like, I laid it all on the line. I am just smoked right now. I have nothing left. And I took some chances and made a mistake. Even if I didn't win, you have to be happy with that outcome. Just what you brought that day. And to me, those are the best days. Like if there's a race where I kind of held back and like just backed up a little bit or overskied something because I wasn't like 100% sure, like that ate away at me big time. And it just, I mean, it really affected me. Like I was like sick to my stomach, felt like crap, and just, it was brutal. Those shitty days where I did not do everything I was capable of doing. And it wasn't always the results. It had a lot to do with just like how you felt inside, about your effort.
I've heard you say before that there are defining moments, like as you're going into your race. What does that mean for you? What are the defining moments? And the other part of it is, how do you prepare for a defining moment?
I mean, so I guess I'll start with preparing, for one of those moments. It's like there's a lot of work that goes into it, and I just want to be 100% sure of myself, give myself every opportunity to be, recovered, ready to go. Like I put all the training in, you've done all the work, but it's like getting yourself to that point where you're looking at nutrition, you're looking at just recovery. So you're feeling like you can just unleash on that course that day.
What about the mental side?
Yeah, on the mental side, when I felt like I had to tell myself I could do it, it wasn't there. There's other times where I just knew like this is mine, like this is my opportunity. And I always look at it like this could be one of the best days of my life right now if I could just, put it all together. And like it's worth taking a chance for that. I'd rather blow it by trying, everything I could possibly get away with than like maybe holding back a little bit, just being safe and not blowing it. I just think that's going back to like that ultimate feeling of satisfaction of putting it on the line and getting away with it, hustling down the hill and getting a little loose, like that turn in St. Anton or across the side hill traversing Kitzbuhel where I got, kicked around a little bit and was able to pull it back. Like those moments are kind of more exciting anyways, than like just having a really clean run top to bottom with no mistakes. And that's really like, that's rare. And if you're not making mistakes, I don't think you're going fast enough or pushing the line enough.
Well, it's like Franz Klammer's 76, right? Is probably one of, if not the most famous ski run ever. And it seemed like he was all over the place. And I know as a kid, that's what we were trying to imitate him as best we could. To prepare for like a Kitzbühel, when does the mental stuff start? Like are you starting this months before? Is this during the summertime where you're building that confidence so that you know that you're gaining momentum and you're getting ready, or you're going to be ready and you can just let go and just have fun? Or how does that process work?
I spent quite a bit of time, watching, tape off of like the races like the year before, or it's just some good like runs top to bottom of Kitzbühel like through the summer, and just go by my head a bunch and just rehearsing, just put myself back in that place and skiing like how I want to ski it. And I think everybody's happy it's not the first race of the year. It'd be a shit show. There'd be a lot more DNFs or just not that kind of like performance that you'll see out there, when it is mid-season. Like you use the other downhill races as like training to get yourself like ready for Kitzbühel. I mean, it's just the first real like race we did Lake Louise, but like the first real downhill was like Beaver Creek, where we got some like really demanding turns, big airs. You had to be on your game.
But the conditions are better, right? I mean, the conditions generally in Colorado are way better than you're going to get in Austria.
Yeah, it's just like the smoothest, most perfect snow you can ever like ski race on. Beaver Creek, like the Talon crew, the course crew, they do the best job hands down of any race hill. It's just really fun skiing. It's really like solid, compact, hard snow, but like it doesn't break apart. It's just there could be guys like in the 70s with pretty close to the same conditions as the guys in the front group, right? Where and it makes a fair race. You go to Europe and it's a lot warmer, icier, stuff just starts breaking down a lot quicker. And so start positions, a lot more important there.
Yeah, I mean, they're like trucking snow in half the time and boot packing it onto the hill. And I mean, it's like it's for real, which has got to be, as a racer, like that's one of the cool things too, right? Though,
Yeah.
is that it's like this is as real as it's going to get. It's as gnarly as it's going to get. People don't want to do this, so I want to do it more.
Yep. Well, I tell you, like, I love skiing on Beaver Creek snow. It felt so good, but I actually enjoyed more like the rough, gnarly, nasty stuff like in Bormio and Kitzbühel, because I was like, this is where I could maybe separate myself from the others, and that was like another like weapon, I guess, in the arsenal for me, knowing that like, hey, I'm gonna thrive off this more. I gotta want it and like love it more than anybody else, and that's where I do well. But like say, Capitville and Beaver Creek, really similar snow. Then you get to Europe and in Austria and Switzerland, it's a little different. but you just have to be able to adapt to those different conditions. But I thrived off that stuff. The gnarlier it was, I think, and the more consequences, say like at Kitzbuhel, which is the most mentally demanding hill on the World Cup circuit, it just, I just like that because it got me in more of this like hyper focused mode. And I tell you, like I was different going into Kitzbühel than any other place that we raced at. Where like first, I mean rolling in, I'd be like, okay, searching out my phone, like throw some music on, like Ride the Lightning, Metallica, let's go. That was like rolling in. And that night, I'd walk up to the finish line jump, and I'd be on my own and just in the dark and looking at the side hill traverse and kind of talking to the mountain in a way like, hey, I'm so fired up to be here. And I have full respect for you, keep me safe, but I'm coming out here to own you this week. And just give me a little extra, like help me out, help me go a little faster than anybody else. So you had this like little bit of connection, like more intimacy, which I was a fan of. Like I like to try and really just be connected with these hills. And one that stands out just recently, like Sophia Goggia, like had this post about from her coach about just find that line, just let it flow. And I was like, that's what it's about. It's like, the path of least resistance, like where water would flow down the mountain. Like that's where you gotta, that's where you gotta search that out. You gotta like work with gravity. And going back to like how I inspect and look at the hill and spend a lot of time just trying to like just eke out any bit of speed I could in every section, I think was fun for me. But it was also like, okay, you know, this is making me kind of like connect more with the mountain. And that's what you got to do to be fast. You got to work with it. You can't work against it.
It sounds like from what you're talking about that it was a lot more. I mean, you're talking about it's the nastiest, these are the nastiest, most difficult conditions, the most dire possible consequences, but it's also where you felt most alive, where you felt most spiritual. And in some ways, and this might be a stretch, but it also it felt artistic in some ways,
Yeah, we'll go with that.
just from what you were talking about.
The church is my, or the outdoors and mountains of my church, man. Man, it's just like I do feel connected, and really appreciate what's out there and love. Like I've always kind of been like appreciative of like those that like were ahead of me and the history of it, but over time, like much more, it makes a lot more, just a more powerful feeling. But to have that kind of connection, but to me, it was like I did that in Kitzbühel, and I started doing it in Bormio. I started doing that in like some other places where I just like, get like a little more just connected with it. And it was so nice to be able to walk up at night and no one else is around me. Kitzbühel was just off the hook. There are so many people there, and you don't have a chance to like, I mean, you're basically like you're like fighting for attention for the mountain, a little bit with everybody else around. But that was like the one chance I had. Like that first night we roll in the Kitzbühel, and I go up there and it was like I could really relax and just like kind of just take it all in. I was basically like, I mean, just soaking up the energy from the hill. Like I really feel when I'm there, you can feel the energy coming out of the ground. Like to me, maybe it's that mental aspect. It means so much to me, right? Just being there and the history and just like what's at stake and the opportunity there to just ski a hill like that. Like there's no other race hill like that in the world. And so you can't just go there and train on it. You can only get a chance to ski on it once a year during the race. So it's just like all that stuff is like extra, just that's built up inside, especially for me. And I just felt like that energy from the ground and just like it's going through my body and just feel like you're just buzzing, you get like little like lightning bolts shooting out of your fingertips a little bit. But to me, it was like it was the big one. And yeah, it's just there's a lot of hype, and people talk about it, but it's a real deal. I mean, you look at the Strife, One Hell of a Ride, that film, and every racer it's talking like they're not trying to like blow it up, make it bring more drama to it or talk it up. I mean, it's actually like how it is. It's like everybody's terrified, the first day. You pretty much just want to make it down clean, hit your marks, get down safe. It's like, okay, I did give it a little too much respect. I backed off a little bit there. Like, and that to me kind of ate me alive a little bit, like, because I did not want to be backing off. But like by race day, it was all in and ready to throw down. It's just that I think those are the most unbelievable feelings when you're faced with those kind of consequences and that risk. You calculate it, but you're willing to take a chance, and that's why I loved having that opportunity, was getting the gate and taking the chance.
Can you describe the run, like and probably even from the preparation? I mean, like, what are you thinking before you get the start? Because we see you on television. We don't know what's going on. Like, I mean, like take us through race day. Like, when do you wake up? What do you do? And then all the way through your run.
Well, I was always a fan of trying to save everything for race day, for the race run, and I'd be like, getting everything laid out, and I'd be so I could just wake up as late as I could, try and get as much sleep as I could, and then like stroll down, breakfast, and be really or whoever else, like, you fired up for the day, you ready to go? I'm like, I am, but not quite yet, just, we got a couple more hours to go. And it would be this build up,
So you could do that. You could have yourself wake up late and build that build. You weren't feeling like the nerves and the.
I didn't want to waste anything. I want to save everything for that course, I mean, I hardly ever take elevators, but like day before, I'm riding the elevator every time, save my legs, all this stuff. You're thinking about all these little things, right? Like, you want to have as much like power and energy in your body as possible, right? I didn't want to waste anything, but I would go out and I would like hammer that last training run, 100%, and max out. And I do a big recovery just to be, refreshed and all that. But after that, I've tried to save myself, but it's and then like for training, you want to get amped up, like you have these like little kind of peaks of like just intensity and drop it down. But it was, to me, like, I'd also like play a little game where I'd maybe stretch out the time a little too close to the start, and I wouldn't want to hang out in the starting area too long, just too much to think about. And so I'd be kind of like in a little bit of rush, like, oh man, I hope I don't like cut this too close. And then you start
There's so
kind of,
many people on the hill too,
oh
right?
yeah, and you got to plan way ahead to Kitzbuhel, trying to get on the lift, and if, racers get to cut the line, get right up to the front, and all that stuff. But still, like, it was in a way like I liked to put myself under pressure there, because it was just a little bit of like a build up, just like steps all the way up until you get to the start. But then the starting gate, like a couple guys out, it'd be I'd wait till I put my skis on to maybe two guys out. Just want to shake up the legs and just like try not to be in the start house, then kind of walk in and like, let's get them, let's get into these boards and ready to go. And that was just, for me, it was like a routine of like breathing and just trying to get in the zone. Like, just trying to get a lot of air in the lungs, get the body ready and primed, but try and blank out, really, and just thinking about just trying to get in that like zone in that moment. And just the breathing to me helped a lot. And then just stomping my skis there and getting fired up, and you hear the crowd going crazy, but it's just, it's just like a slow build up to in the gate, and then just bam, like everything you got.
And why blank out? Why did you try to blank out?
Just because, I'm on autopilot. I know, there's nothing I don't have to think about anything else. Like, I know where to go on the hill, and just, it's time to just hustle down this mountain and try and get down as fast as I could. And I think like you just don't want to have other thoughts, like, run through your head. Like, to me, it was just, I want to put everything I had in this run, but it was just all gonna be like, I mean, it's all laid out. I've already gone over this so many times in my head. I know all the spots I need to be on the line, what I need to do, and now it's hustle time. So.
And was it hustle? Is that what you thought? What were the triggers for you?
Yeah, keywords. Like I use the keywords. Like I mean, mine was just like, like one I mentioned before, just like this could be the best day of my life right now, or and then crush it, like just like straight up crush it. There's nothing else. The most treacherous part of Kitzbuhel is the bottom traverse off Hausberg, and so this is like where you gotta kind of like go from like being relaxed and nice, clean, like aerodynamic, like tucking turns into like full up fight. And so it would be like like a switch. It's like get it, like right into like off Hausberg, and then all of a sudden things change, like a tempo changes, and you gotta get after it right there. So it'd just be like a keyword like that. So at the start would be like crush it, and just like just knowing this opportunity you had, so time to take a chance. And then like in certain spots where you had to go from like a more relaxed type of skiing to really all out fight, it'd be just like that keyword, just to try and get yourself to like flip the switch a little bit, bring the intensity up.
I've heard somebody say, I forget who it was, but like on that traverse at the bottom, as you're doing the traverse, that it's a fall away, it's so bumpy that you're bouncing around so much that you can't even focus, like your eyes can't focus.
That's why
It-
you look way ahead.
is that
Like,
what you do?
yeah, you look way, like, I mean, you can see, I mean, plus, like, you look way ahead, you're able to kind of like really match the right line, but yeah, it gets bumpy and your head's just banging around. And the farther you look ahead, the smoother it gets. You don't be looking like 20, or 50 feet in front of your ski tips. You got to like way out there just to smooth things out. But it's, you kind of just know, I mean, on that Sahel Traverse, you're just fighting to stick the edge into the snow and just like maintain with what you got. So you're not really adjusting too much. You're just holding on and trying to keep that like ski tracking. So but it's unbelievable feeling, Chris. Like that to me was the ultimate race. And
Is that the one you always wanted to win? Like of
yeah,
all the races, like
oh yeah, hands
more
down.
more than the Olympics or not?
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, I want to win a bunch of races,
You want
but
to win all the races, right?
yeah, if there's one, like that's the one. And I mean, 2006, my last year in Alpine, it was to me like if I was going to take that downhill win at the Olympics. I won the test event, the World Cup event, 2 years before that in the same hill, the fastest training run and everything. Like I was like, this is mine. But yeah, it didn't happen, and I'd much rather have that Hahnenkamm win than the Olympic win. It would be nice to have both, but you know, I'm happy with that like Kitzbuhel win there for sure. And then to me, with the probably the best like thing too, it wasn't that one win. I had 7 podiums there in 5 years, and so I was always kind of like in the hunt. And to be bringing that level of skiing to that race hill every time I showed up, that was like really satisfying because I put the most effort into that one race out of all of them. And to have like your best success from the ones you worked the hardest for, I'd say is the most satisfying. So that's had some close calls. I lost the race by 300s there. It was a tight one. It's not much time, but one win the Super G, one win the downhill, and then 5 other times on the podium, which is pretty cool.
Do the wins feel different than the podiums? Are they in a different category?
Yeah, I mean, no one really remembers like, or you don't remember too much of like the second or thirds, but those wins are, I mean, especially there, just like the feeling you get, like just with the crowd, the energy, and just knowing it's the biggest race on the World Cup circuit. That win is something special for sure. And there's cool things like if you win the downhill, only downhill winner does this. Like there's a trap door that opens up in the finish area after they've done the unofficial awards, and the winner gets like exit the whole like finish arena through this trap door, this tunnel that's underground. And the year I was third there, I saw Herman Meyer like this thing open up out of nowhere. I'd never seen this before, right? And I'm like, what is that? And he just like disappears, walks down, and gone. And so, look, when we were in St. Anton for the world champs, I was going to ask him what was down there, but I was like, you know what? I don't ever want to know unless I find out myself. And that was kind of like another incentive, to go out there and win that race. Just because there's like just special different things, like that happen there. You get your own gondola with your name on it, and just there's a lot of cool stuff that happens surrounding that race.
What does that mean? I mean, it seems like you're so connected to the history of the mountain, and I mean, and like the spiritual connection to the mountain. What does it mean to have your name on a gondola on that mountain?
Well, it's huge. I mean, you're amongst the best racers in the world. I mean, looking at like all the other like gondolas that come down, and just you're familiar with all the names, and it's legendary status. You're inscribed in a piece of time, or a history, and you're amongst that club, which is really cool to be, amongst that club. Like the Lauberhorn, like last year is the 90th anniversary of Vangen's race, the Lauberhorn, and they invited all former winners back, and I went back there with Kyle Rasmussen, and there's all these other guys like Peter Mueller, guys are way ahead of me, but just to meet these guys and be around them, and be back in that venue was really special. And they treated us really nice, like set us up, like set my whole family up, the whole week we're there. And I was back on the race hill doing inspection with my kids and some other friends, and like Hans Knaus up there in the start. Just like it feels good to have that sort of status that you belong to this like group of like outstanding skiers, in the sport. And so that was really special there in Wengen, and always is going back to Kitzbuhel.
That's really the inner circle, right? I mean, you were in the inner circle there, both at the Laberhorn and Vangen and at
That's those classics. I mean, winning a race is cool. Like winning a World Cup race, that was, I mean, the number one goal. I didn't care which one it was. I mean, at that point, I just want to be the best in the world. And then it's like, okay, I want to win that one, and this one. And I just threw it out there to RCS, like, man, welcome to the club now. It's cool to be a World Cup, winner. And, you've earned it. You did it. Keep doing it. It never gets old. But it's to be amongst that, like the skiing community in that way. And it just feels good, like you work hard for it. And I wish that one day, like there's going to be another American really soon to feel that same thing in Kitzbühel.
right, and possibly even win an overall, right, a
Yeah.
downhill overall crown.
Yeah, that was a tough one. Like that was probably my number one goal, because it was like consistency, and not just fast one day, but through the year. And had some close like season ending, positions there, but never took the title. And so that was like one of the things that like, it was that a downhill title and the Olympic win were the two things missed my career, but I can still call it a great career. And you got like, the way I look at it is like, I gave it everything I had. It wasn't for lack of trying. So that's how I could walk away and be satisfied. And I actually walked away from the sport pretty early, as opposed to a lot of other ski racers at 32. But I was at the top of my game, and I just felt like I wanted to walk away knowing what it was like going fast, and being really competitive, and not like just hanging on too long. But there's just other factors, just life in general, family, and just doing something different. That was kind of the other draw for me.
Sometimes you have to quit what you're doing in order to do whatever's next as well.
Yeah, I just feel like, I mean, I see some guys that just like take it on a little too long, and they either get hurt, or like they're not like haven't won a race in like 3 years or something like that. It's like I've walked away from the sport like winning, which was a pretty awesome feeling. And you look at a guy like Marcel Hirscher, and that's like the next level up, like he's overall World Cup champ, I mean, winning all these races, and he walked away from it. But I got a lot of respect for him for doing it that way. Like he walks away like knowing he could probably show up anytime. I still feel like I could show up if I put a lot of work in there. I still feel like I show up and win. I'm probably kidding myself, but that's how I left the sport. So it's there's times like, man, if I wanted again and went for it, I could get it back. But again, I know how much I put into that. It's your last feeling you have, right? And that was my last feeling I had, was being one of the best guys on any given day, my last season.
Did you plan for your retirement? Like when you were competing, did you think about when you'd retire? Did you think about how you'd retire?
Not until my last season, and I called it. Actually, I called it at the beginning of the season at Beaver Creek at the press conference. And like no one ever, says that they're done until like after the season or a month or two afterwards. I mean, it's the last race of the year, like this is it. But and everybody laughed at me, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm serious. This is my last season. You'll see me racing. I'm done." But it's gonna make me really soak up every moment this year, because knowing I'm going into this race for the last time. I think that was the kind of a special thing. I think that was what made my year a little more special, and it put more pressure on myself to make sure I stayed on track and did the right thing like every day through the whole season. It's a long year.
What made you say that you wanted to retire? Like, because at the beginning of the year, I mean, did you know how it would all play out? Because I mean, it's easy enough now to look back on it, right, and go, okay, that made me prepared for everything. That made me relish everything. But did you know when you were saying that that's what you were, that you were effectively putting this challenge in front of yourself?
Oh yeah, exactly what I was doing. I was challenging myself to make sure I was on point for every race the whole season. And I'm like, I'm done, after this year. It's like a crazy opportunity I have right now to make sure I do everything possible every single week to be on my game. And the one thing that really kind of like solidified it was early season. And that was at Beaver Creek. I won that downhill that year. I got second in the suit in the GS in Beaver Creek, and then we go to ended up in training really fast, and it was a race I was never on the podium at. And then race day, we get snow, we get wind, they bring it the downhill start to the Super G start, we go around the camels. I'm like, I put so much effort into having the ultimate test with like the gnarly fast conditions and top to bottom race, and it's taken away from me. I'm like, right there, I remember telling Bill Marola, I was like, this is one of the reasons why I'm retiring right here. Put all this work into it, and I'll get the ultimate test. This is a hard thing. I lost having a great opportunity, just due to weather. Things changed so much, and it was just an point in my career where, that was a little disappointing. And then, but I had a fantastic last season, winning Beaver Creek, Bormio, Vangen, third in Kitzbuhel. Had a crappy experience in the Olympics, but at World Cup finals, I got second in my last race, and I was like, "Oh, that was a good year, start to finish." Besides having like a little, trouble, one of the biggest races of my life, the Olympics, but that's the way it goes. So I felt like completely fine with my decision, and I never like once like looked back like, maybe I'm not going to retire this year. I'm going to go another year, but I was done. So, and to me, it was helpful for me to jump into something else like ski cross, and it was kind of fun. I started getting into filming up in AK in Alaska. That's the proving grounds. That's the big stuff, big boy stuff up there, and also ski cross. And there's a pro tour going on. I was like, this is fun. This is still it's competitive. There's not as much pressure, but I'm going out there. I'm like training for it. I'm still like testing skis for it. I'm like, it's something else I wanted to do. And I was like able to do that when I was healthy and strong, and took my licks the first year, and then figured out the second year and had some like, some fun races in the ski cross world.
Is some of that from Zach? You were saying that Zach moved from the World Cup onto the skier cross. Did you start hearing that from him and saying, okay, that sounds like an interesting way for me to go as well?
Oh yeah, I was following it and checking it out. And it's like, I mean, one of my loves is like riding dirt bikes, and it was like moto on skis in a way. And I remember like Sean Palmer, snowboarder, right? Like really, well-rounded all-around athlete, but Palmer comes in and beats all these guys on skis. Like, would you let this like snowboarder do to you? Just waxed you on skis. Like man, he's so good at the start and rhythm sections, and he knows how to glide and all this. I'm like, well, you just got beat by a snowboarder. How's that feel, dude? But it was definitely I was staying in touch, and Casey Puckett was doing it with my other teammates, and so it was fun. Like I was able to jump into some of these like this pro tour and X Games with some of my old teammates I was ski racing with over years and before that, and so it's still like
And you won the X Games, right?
yeah, yep,
2008, is that when you won the X Games?
yeah. So my first year in ski cross in 2007, after racing, when I made the transition from ski racing in '06, and I was fast, um, really competitive until finals when the guys were really good and just had better starts than me. And I was always getting pinched out or like blocked, and I crashed in every race, every final. The first year I crashed, and I was like, okay, I got to figure this out. I got to figure out how to be competitive and get out of the starting gate. So it's technique and work on some like strength. Like training, and then I started being competitive. I could be like kind of in the mix a little bit, but it was fun, like going head to head, and not only studying it, the course top to bottom, the way you're gonna do it, but you have to have like plan B, plan C, and know your competitors, who's fast in the turns, who's good in the starts, where you're gonna kind of pick a start, who you can draft off, maybe like slingshot, because you do a better turn. But there's all kinds of things to think about, and I think that's what really I had a blast with. It was a new challenge, and that kept my mind away from what I was really missing inside of the racing. And I didn't look at any ski racing like for 2 years because I didn't want to be. I just felt like I was. It was hurting a little bit not to be there, and like gosh, I could be at Beaver Creek right now and put down another fast run today, but I didn't want to think about that. I was just like trying to involve myself in something else. So that was an easier transition for me to have something to do, and just not be sulking too much, from what I was missing out on the World Cup tour.
You won X Games in 2008. You went to Vancouver, right, in 2010 as a skier cross skier. So
Yeah.
on the freestyle team. Uh, was it as fulfilling? Was that part of your career? Because you basically did it for 4 years, is that right? Or did you do it a little bit longer after Vancouver?
No, I was done after Vancouver with ski cross. It was something that like in 2008 after I won X Games, the next year like, oh, ski cross is going to the Olympics, and I was kind of laughing at it. And like, are you gonna go back? Are you gonna go for it? I'm like, no, like I can do that. Then I started thinking about like how cool would it be to be involved in a new sport debuting in the Winter Olympics, and plus is really fun. I just didn't like the FIS tracks, like our pro tour tracks, 48 straight, and the Jeep Tour and X Games were like really awesome, like fun, big tracks, speed, lots of big terrain, big jumps, and the FIS races were like just tight turns, and if you didn't have a good start, you're just pretty much blocked the whole time. You can't like, it's frustrating. They weren't great like tracks. And then like I was kind of getting a little more interested in it after some time, and then Casey was all in, and I'm like, oh man, we should just do a push. Let's do it. And I ended up like at the St. Johann, which is right next to Kitzbuhel, in the ski cross. I got second at this night race, and it was a pretty rowdy final. I mean, I was in fourth, and I ended up like banging into some guy's back of skis. Had to actually grab him because I like just railed right up in a turn and slammed into him, grabbed him, hold him, push him ahead of me, step up the side, got by him, made another good move on the inside of this other guy. And then like I was, by the time like the last two turns, I was on the guy in the lead and like was going right for the finish line right next to him. And that was a really exciting run. Like when you start from the back of the pack and you can like own the other guys out there and just work your way through the pack, it's an exciting run. And so that was like, oh man, like I'm just kind of reinfused, with this like energy and stoked to try and like take in the Olympics. And then I went to Lake Placid, got a fourth there in the final. Wasn't a great race, but got in the final there and solidified my spot. And then X Games are like, okay, we're gonna have one last fun hurrah, big race, and then go to the Olympics. And I ended up crashing there and dislocating my hip. So I had a tough road in 3 weeks, to try and get back on my skis and compete in the Olympics. And I actually did, but I just didn't have like the strength. I was like laid up for 2 weeks. I had like a week to try and like slowly build back up, and then I just smoked myself in the Olympics and training because I was having fun on the track, but I wanted like more time and to get to speed. And by race day, I was in a tank. I just didn't have much energy left. So I just overdid it with like being 2 weeks of coming back from an injury and then just back on skis. But that was kind of a rough go. But it was awesome being part of that. And I still think that's one of the most fun things you can do on skis, that ski cross.
Well, it's the hustling you're talking about, right? I mean, you're talking about your greatest races on the World Cup or when you had to hustle the most. And if you're going to have to hustle, you really have to hustle in skier cross.
Oh yeah. And they get to the point too where, you just got to beat the next guy. And it's not like down to the 100th, like a perfect run. But there's a lot of strategy and going back to like knowing what your competitor is going to do and how to kind of like what you got to do if you're behind or if you're in front, you just stick with your game plan, go as fast as you can. But sometimes there's sections where it's better to be second or third and have like draft and have a slingshot effect. So it was cool. I had a blast doing it. And then, it's just this sport is delivered so much for me as far as just almost the way I reinvented myself or just do new things and it's keeping it really fresh. I'm skiing 5 days a week, right? And I'm not skiing all day. A lot of these, like ski days, most of them are just, half days, but it's just, I still like get up really like loving and wanting to go skiing.
Are you still training the way that you trained before? I mean, I remember you talking about one training session where you'd run up the mountain, like run up the trail with like a backpack full of rocks or something like that. Am I getting this right?
Yeah, yeah. I haven't done that in a long time. That was only when I was ski racing. That was
You're not still doing it.
that was like the physical mental limit, like, or yeah, 25, 30 pound weight vest and sprint as fast as you could up on Donner Summit. There's all this awesome granite rock. So it's like you can go up really steep stuff and just get good grip with your feet and just hammering, and it was like Rocky style training. I love being outside, throwing rocks around and just being athletic. But it was one of those mental training sessions where it was a full max physical and you get like I'd stack rocks. I said it's a time and go as hard as I could for like a minute and a half, have these rocks stacked right there and have to make that 2 more times all out as hard as I could go. And by the third time I'm on the ground puking, I just like my body has so much lactic acid in it. It's just revolt, just it can't handle it. And it was just, my body just couldn't handle it, keeping food down or water. But it was really painful. It was not a great feeling at the time, but like just afterwards, like knowing that I could, like, there's no ski race where I was going to be able, or where I was able to push myself that hard. I want to train harder than I ever had to race. So that got to me like, at the bottom, say at Bormio, like where your legs are screaming and you're completely tapped out with energy, that like, you have a little more inside of you to keep pushing and not give up that like aerodynamics or, clean skiing or tight lines. And it was just, that was probably the coolest workout I did, as far as getting ready for.
Knowing that you were ready.
Yeah.
What was the anticipation like of that day? Like you knew that you were going to do that. Did you circle that day and say, okay, I need to know by September 9th that I'm ready. Did you have a plan like with your training? Did you lead up to that day, or how did the build and what was the mentality of like, okay, this is the day. Am I excited or am I like, oh man, I'm gonna kill myself today?
Yeah, I was looking forward to it for sure, but it wasn't that far in advance. It'd probably be like 2 weeks out. Okay, I mean, we have a good plan of like intensity and some recovery days and building up. And I'm like, this right here would be like maybe one of the last days I was home, before I was hitting the road. Probably like with like a 3-day recovery period before I was on the road. I'd be like, okay, because I know it's gonna hurt for a couple days afterwards. But it was just it was the final blow pretty much in the final like just final test to see, to make sure I was ready. And I wanted that, like, that full out, like a full all out session, and just to know that I could bring it on the, when it counted on the race days. And so I had Marco Sullivan join me one time. I did it like every year, um, for like 5 years. He joined me like one year and he didn't show up again. Kept calling him like,
And you were excited for it though. You're like, this is the day that I'm gonna prove it that I'm ready.
oh yeah, I look forward to it. Yeah. But yeah, I do not. I train. I noticed like when I first started in ski cross after World Cup, I was like, man, I put a lot into this, like, physical preparation. Like I'm just gonna ski myself into shape. And I did 2 years of that, and it just wasn't quite there, especially early season. You have to like build the strength up and the endurance off the hill. And I started doing that last couple of years, with these like routines I call Mountain Warrior. And it's more like just less weight, but just a lot of single leg strength, athletic exercises. And I really feel a difference. Like I'll do like, 5, 6 weeks of that, of 2 sessions a week. And I make gains. I feel really good. I come into the season just ready to go. And so I do train still, these days, but more it's like in the ski season, it's just skiing a lot and then just doing like recovery sessions. It's nice once in a while, just get a wild hair and just go for, like a run or do like a intense like just lift session just to kind of like fire the body up a little bit. But I don't have a good routine these days. It's pretty random.
What were you thinking? Because you talked about how much the Hahnenkamm meant to you, like going to Kitzbuhel and racing in Kitzbuhel and your communion with the mountain and this spiritual kind of thing. And what were you thinking when you decided that you wanted to forerun Kitzbuhel, and how long after you had retired was that?
That was a moment that came to a shock. Like I didn't go back to Kitzbühel for 7 years. I didn't want to be there because I didn't want to feel like I was missing out. I mean, that was like the number one race for me every year, and I didn't want to be there and just watch others have the fun, right? Where I couldn't. And Powder Magazine like reached out to me like, hey, we want to do a feature story on the Hanukkah. We want you to show us around. And I was like, I'm not going back. And they kind of like worked me for every other day for like 2 weeks. And finally, kind of gave in. Like, all right, you guys gonna do a good job on this, do a good spread. Like, I'd love to be part of it. And they're like, we want to be there with you and just see the ins and outs and get all the, like, see the important stuff that a racer is involved with. And so I call up a good buddy of mine. It's the chief of race there, Axel Naglish, that lives in Kitzbühel. I was like, hey, can I get access for this group? Guys with Powder, this is their plan. I'm gonna be showing them around. And he's like, no problem. Like, do you want to come back and forerun? And I was like, what? I mean, it wasn't even like a personal desire at all. I didn't even think about that. And once he planted that seed, though, I just started like, I was like, no way, for real. I haven't been on downhill skis in 10 or 7 years. And so he's like, yeah, I mean, you could do it if you want. And I just like was thinking, how cool would that actually be to go back there after this amount of time away and actually jump back in the gate and ski it. It was scary, thought, but I was like, I'm in. So I got on downhill skis, like at Sugar Bowl, and just started doing some hot laps and just trying to get feel. I was like, man, these things are way heavier and longer than I've been skiing on for a while. And just, I mean, I ski some GS, but every year a little bit, but nothing like that. And I showed up there and I brought my boots from 2006, my old race boots, and I got some new skis from my serviceman that was working with another Austrian athlete at the time. So I had good equipment, but it was like I was all over the place, Chris. The first run, I was just so out of it. Coming to stuff that I just did not want to be coming into like that fast, and just not having like that desire to like really go for it. I came in on the last training run, which I didn't have like, and each training run gets harder and harder. The first day it's smooth, it's not that bad, and then as more people go down the hill, run it, slip it, it gets icier, bumpier. It gets tough. And I showed up on a tough day, and I was like just getting slapped around everywhere and just way off my game. I'm making the finish line. I'm like, geez, it's like, what was I doing? But it pissed me off. Like I was like, okay, I'm going. I'm gonna 4-1 tomorrow on race day. I'm gonna bring it a little more. And so I was able to step up quite a big level, and that was actually a fun run to be able
You're,
to go
you're
down
fully
race day.
stripped, everything. I mean, your race skis, you're stripped, you're in a suit, you're everything, right?
Yeah, like back into kind of like hanging with the other athletes, and just like inspecting, getting like tips from the coaches from our U.S. team, and like watching some vid. But I also like I was out at night and not preparing myself like I should have been as a ski racer, because I was on this Franz Weber tour with all these other clients, and like night before a race day, I was up to like 2:30 in the morning, and I was like, I got to get to bed. I'm going up early for jury inspection, get 2 inspections, so I wanted just a little more time on the hill. So I go up early, in the dark, and make a slip down, check it out, and go back around when the athletes are going to get another one. And I was so gripped, like the palms are sweating, and just it was not a fun place to be. And everybody else is like, man, we retired like all these other ski racers, because I mean, all the Austrian guys, former racers that have been around for years, like they always come back to watch, supporting their teammates, and just Kitzbuhel Ski Club, Austrian Federation wants them there. But they're like, man, we retired so we didn't have to race this thing anymore. And you come back out of retirement and racing this. Are you kidding me? I'm like, I'm not racing, man. I'm like forwarding, trying to make it ever harder. Ever harder said that. The guy, like, I mean, he won the last year he raced there, right? He was like, that's the last thing I want to do is go back on that track. But it was, to me, it kind of felt pretty good. And, there's all these other guys like, what are you doing? Like, how much training do you have? Like, this is dangerous. This is, you got to take it seriously. I know I got to take it seriously. And I might be over my head a little bit right now, but I've committed to it. And Jono, my old, my coach on the U.S. team, he was coaching for the Canadians at that time. And he sees me at the bottom, and we're talking about, the run coming up, and he just raises his hands, like high five. He's like, can't wait to see you just crush this thing. And that kind of gave me a little extra help. I needed that, needed some external confidence from somebody just to like, tell me I could do it in a way. But it was a tough battle, and I didn't really enjoy it too much because I was used to going full throttle, and I was coming to sections where I'm standing up, using that air brake, or like sliding on top of the turn before I go into it. I wasn't trying to make a lot of speed, in certain sections. I was trying to hold on and just make it to the finish line. But it was pretty cool, like to go back and have those feelings again. So, and I ended up doing it another 2 times. I did it. I filmed it another time for like this Strike 360 with this like stick on the end of my pole with like 5 GoPros on it. Skied the whole track with that thing out in front of me. That was kind of a nasty challenge, but like that was kind of like, I just want to be part of it. It's just once I went back that first time, I was like, I need to keep coming back because this is cool. This is fun to like not be like all about ski racing here. I could see other things. Like I was able to kind of like go back and forth between like the athlete and the fan, back and forth and really take part in everything else that Kitzbuhel has to offer. And it's nonstop like stuff going on, events and parties and big stuff like that's happening. A lot of people coming in, and it's there's a lot of excitement, a lot of good energy there.
You were like the VIP of VIPs though. I mean, like you're on the athlete side being a VIP, and then you're like the VIP in the village as well. Like this is the way to see it, other than it means that you're actually running the Hahnenkamm downhill course, which sounds like it was
Yeah.
great for you, but scares me even just to think about it. What was the respect like that you got from the Eberharders? And I think like Kush was there too, wasn't he? And saying, "There's no way I want to do that."
Yeah, they were just laughing, shaking their head, like, can't believe you're freaking crazy enough to do this, you know? I'm like, join me, hop in the start, let's do it. Let's have a little reunion, you know, and maybe have like a little like inside bet, you know, amongst the five of us. Like it'd be pretty cool. I was working those guys pretty hard actually, like Walkoffer and Kush and Eberharder to dude, line up, boys, let's do this together. You know, and there was like not a slight chance of like, you know, any like, you know, second thoughts, like, well, maybe we might do this. Like, there's no way. They're like, we're out. But that was it was just kind of fun to relive it in a way. And yeah.
It's one of the coolest things that I can think of. I mean, it's like, I mean, like you don't have like a baseball player who retires, who comes and goes and hits at the World Series, you know, beforehand, or like a football player who gets to play a couple of downs or whatever. I mean, it's like it doesn't happen, but you went to effectively like the Super Bowl of skiing, and you weren't in the race, but you were pretty much in the race.
Yeah, I mean, there's some spots where you got to push. You know, you can't really hold back in certain spots.
Yeah.
But I was like, I know where I can ease off and like save a little strength. But when you get down to the bottom, it's like you gotta like turn the screws into it and go. And so it was a really amazing feeling to do something like that, and just it's another kind of fun challenge because it's like, man, like now I got to be all on it, on my game and really focused again, and really have something like that for a while. And these days it's I'm not really faced with those like super high consequence moments.
I don't know. I've seen some of your big mountain skiing stuff.
Well, I mean, yeah, but it's like I always wanted to ski a pretty like a really challenging like big mountain line, say in Alaska, like I would ski race. I never could though, because there's too much like going on. You gotta like you can't go full throttle, on those things. You gotta be really mindful of like the conditions and slough and like checking speed here and there, and or it's just not one of those like all out runs, and you're not sure either. You're not sure 100% what you're getting yourself into. Where ski racing, you go down the track, you inspect every inch of the hill. For like this big mountain skiing, like you look from the helicopter at the bottom, and you kind of need to like be able to adjust on the fly a little bit. But it's I still like to have. I mean, it takes a lot less to get myself with those butterflies and some of the anxiety, and I still like to kind of find little things that push myself a couple times a week, and have there's a little doubt, like, but you got to take a chance and try and go for it and pull it off. And I'm still kind of looking for that stuff, and I get more of it actually riding moto. Like I started racing off-road races, and there's some moments where I don't have the technical skill that a lot of these guys have that ride it year round, have been riding their whole life. But I'm in the open class. I'm racing young 20-year-olds and just try and go, head to head with them. And I'm willing to still hang it out. Like I might be a little sloppy, make some mistakes, but I'm trying to like tap that throttle back, that downhill mentality.
I've got two more things that I want to ask you about. I realize we've gone for a long time, but this is just such great stuff. How about the bonsai? The Rouse Bonsai. How did you come up with it? And what's the objective? What do you do?
Yeah, well, the Rahlves Bonsai Tour was, it actually, I was inspired by this, it was called the Red Bull White Rush. And it was in Kribenstein, Austria. It was a mass start of like 10 guys, top to bottom, this like really long, like racetrack of this, all off piste down this big mountain. I was like, I want to do that. When I'm retired from ski racing, I'm doing that. And they stopped doing it the year I retired. And so I was like, this is something we gotta do. It's all natural terrain. It's a set course, but it's down a mountain. That's like you have to have skills with skiing, turns, racing. That kind of like let it go mentality. It's like kind of like a throwback to old school racing, like you said, like the Franz Klammer days, whereas not as manicured as it is these days for ski racing. Whereas like rough, a little out of control. But like to me, going head to head, having that ski cross element with just like big mountain skiing and some racing mix, I thought that was like one of the ultimate styles and types of racing. So I just like going fast, whatever I'm doing, and if you could have like a natural hill and incorporate all that stuff, it was really like fun, like just a big thrill and a challenge. So that was awesome. I had that going for 6 years, and we had stops like all in Tahoe. But it was a lot to take on, and I was doing all the logistics, all the sponsorship, run the whole show, hiring the team. It was a lot of like people involved to pull it off. Names I was trying to pull in like Liggety and Bodie and all these guys, like, because I know like, hey, we got some skiers that can give any one of us like top like ski racers a run for our money for sure.
What were the weirdest things you did this, right? And it's kind of it's get to the bottom as best you can, as fast as you can. But were there some times that people just took a totally alternate, not necessarily route because you had to stay on the trail, but a way of doing it?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I would open up sections that are like really wide with a lot of different options. So I would try and work as much natural terrain in as I could. But there's alpine meadows. There's like this, the face it's called. It's all moguls. It's steep, pretty long, and I just put a gate at the top and a gate at the bottom. Like you could do whatever you want to get down there. You could straight line, you could zigzag, whatever. And actually, Bodie's younger brother, Shalom Miller, he was on a snowboard. He came flying into it. I was watching him. And he basically like just went heel edge. And it was like whoop, whoop, whoop over all these bumps instead of like trying to get through on a snowboard, like with turns. And he was basically doing like a super high speed slip and passed the guy doing that. But he was more control. It was like, how can you be in the most control but go as fast as you can in some like pretty gnarly, terrain? And I made these competitors think about different lines too, like I would with downhill. Like you could take this like high line on the ridge or drop down this gully, and then it all matches out at the end. But like, what's faster? And so there's a lot of like kind of strategy, and and so there was a lot of different lines, and some of our top ski racers, some of the guys were like full on like straight linings, like full bombs on these like big gnarly runs, these big pitches with moguls, and sometimes they pulled off, sometimes they wouldn't. But that was the exciting part, and to me, that was like the ultimate. And I would set the time, like do like a qualifying run, and then just run the whole show and just be doing some follow cam actually behind some of the heats. I didn't want to get in the mix, but I want to have some different perspectives, some good footage for the event. And then the only time I raced was at Sugar Bowl, my home mountain, at a super final. We called it, so it was like the winners from each stop, and 4 stops. We put a fifth gate in, and I was like the fifth man, and had to race all these guys top to bottom for a super final, and I put up 10 grand cash. Like whoever wins gets his money. And so that was some pressure, right? Like I didn't want to lose that money. but it was more about pride. Like I didn't want to,
You put up your money.
yeah, I mean, it was a tour's money, but it was still money that I could use for marketing or pay my crew or whatever. Right. So, I mean, it wasn't like straight out of my pocket, but it could have been in my pocket if I lost it, you know? That was kind of like what I was banking on. Like, hopefully I could keep this 10 grand and infuse it into the next season, try and do something bigger and better. But like, yeah, it was fortunately I didn't lose the super final of all those years and kept the extra money in the bank. But there was one year where I did get hurt right before I couldn't compete. And so I put the money up for the rest of those guys, and one of the guys won it. So that was pretty cool, you know. And it was just a way to kind of infuse the sport a little more and bring. I wanted to have ski, snowboard, men, women all together in one event, having a blast. And there's so many great relationships that started, like friendships that started with the bonsai tour, and still, I mean, we haven't had it since 2016. I still got like just like 2 days ago, a friend of mine sent me a picture of like Rahlves bonsai hat, and it's still kicking. And or people, just mention it here and there, or throw a little photo up from, one of those events. And to me, that feels really good. Like I did something that people had fun doing, and it was intimidating. But I saw over like a couple of years, like some skiers and snowboarders like getting so much better just in their riding, their skills, decision making, just from having been pushed a little bit on the bonsai tour. So we all miss it, but it was just ran its course.
So when we were skiing together last year, we were skiing in Deer Valley, and then you were saying that pretty soon thereafter, and this was pretty close to when the shutdown happened. I mean, this was like, I don't know, it was probably sometime in February, I think, that we were skiing, or maybe even the
Yeah,
beginning
like
of
3 weeks
March.
or something.
Yeah. And you're planning to go to the finals of the pro tour, is what you were telling me. So the dual
Yeah.
pro tour, and you were saying, I think it was in Taos, and you were saying you were going there. You retired from alpine skiing in 2006, retired from skier cross in 2010, and this was then 2020. How do you think you would have done in that pro tour?
I would have gotten smoked, but I didn't care. Like I just wanted to go and just have some fun and see, where I mean, who knows? Like, see what I could have done. Like, I mean, my goal was to, like, if I could make the final, it'd be awesome for sure. But, I could be kicked out the first round too. Who knows? But the slalom part, like, I would have like had no chance. But in the GS, like, that's where I was like hoping to have something, something, something there that, make it through a little bit, make it through a couple rounds. But that's that didn't happen, and we'll never know. So it's now actually like going back to like what you said about Clommer in '76. I'm heading over to Austria mid-February to reenact some of his run. They're doing a documentary on Franz Clommer, and I got pulled in to be one of the stunt skiers for it. So I've got to study his style and try and emulate a lot of like things he did for just certain sections. And that's gonna be pretty exciting. We got like 7 days of filming that we have planned to be on that Eagles Olympic downhill track. And
Pittsburgh, yeah.
hopefully I do the right thing and can get some good shots for this documentary coming up. But I had to send my pair of boots. I'm like, I just gotta have my own pair of like race boots, but you can put me on any other ski, whatever. But I just want to have my own boots. So I sent those over to Austria like a month ago to get like painted up and like all decked out to look retro and kind of blend in with how he was with the equipment he had, back then. But that's kind of the next exciting thing coming up.
As you were saying that, that's what I was thinking, was like, what are you going to ski on? Are you going to ski as the ski equipment from 76 is a whole lot different than the ski equipment in 2021.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We'll see. I don't know. Whatever they pull out, like I'm gonna have to ski on. So that's the exciting thing. Right now, like there's something like every year, like a couple of months out from like the season, something new pops up. I don't know if you saw Race the Face that I did with Jeremy Heights a couple of years ago. It was setting a Super G course on this big steep, like, like big mountain face. Check that out. It's on Red Bull TV. It's called Race the Face.
Okay.
And it was like, it basically blends big mountain skiing with racing. It's something that's like so unique, and I love being part of those like unique projects, and being part of like that Strife movie and that Strife 360, and then Race the Face, and this bonsai tour, and now like trying to fill in as a stunt guy for Clomber. I mean, well, it's a huge honor. We're friends. He's a great guy, and I think it's one of the coolest opportunities to just to be involved with. But to still be kind of in the game in a way, and just have involvement in different sides of the sport, whether it's like skiing up Alaska or going, skiing in Switzerland and some big mountains, or like putting the race skis back on. It's a lot of fun, and just trying to keep the dream alive.
Was that your objective? Did you want to stay in the sport in that kind of capacity, or did it just kind of happen?
It's just been happening. It's like, I mean, I love skiing, and so I've always wanted to, be involved in skiing, but I need more than just going up there and just making laps, like on the hill. Like I want to have like little things that motivate, me, or to like inspire me to be motivated to like make sure I'm staying on my game and in shape. Like you get sucked into these like days of just making, 2-3 hours of skiing with your friends, and like now it's like with COVID, you're not going into the lodge, the bar. Like you go to back to your truck, and you got this hitch fire grill. It's off the back of my hitch. I made glue vine the other day. You just start sipping. Like at lunchtime, you're like eating some sausages, drinking glue vine, some beers. Like all of a sudden gets out of control. Like, man, like this is kind of fun once in a while, but I don't want to do this every day, right? I mean, it's like I still want to take it serious and feel good up on the hill and push myself, but it's it's like I need to have like something like that World Pro Ski Tour would have been awesome, because it's like, okay, now I got to grind a little bit, for like a month, and just do some training and get ready for this. So I don't want to show up completely, be a complete joke, or not have like anything competitive, in me. So it helps get me to this space where I got something to reach for and go for a little bit, and that's why just try and like be available for these opportunities that come up. And I think if I'm just still doing this stuff, staying active and staying in good shape, then these things still, like these offers, keep coming. So that's been pretty cool.
You seem unique in the industry in that respect, in that you're doing a wide variety of different things as you continue to get older, right? I mean, we're not as young as we used to be, and to be able to do all of these things, but also to be able to do them well. The racing part, the forerun in Kitzbuhel, the big mountain stuff, the doing some of the cool stuff. I remember watching one of the movies that you did where you guys had like lights on you or whatever, and you're doing it all in the dark.
Yeah, Afterglow. That was, I mean, like I said, like stuff just popped up too. Just a really unique thing. Skiing Alaskan spines, with they're all lit up at night, and we got a light suit on. Like, I mean, I live for that stuff. I live for these like unique opportunities, and like I love just being like I said, like certain days is just being like a normal skier out there, and just like doing the opera, and just hanging out and all that. But I like having these other like special projects that like I gotta be tuned up for, and just like I've been lucky to have maybe been called on, by and still be kind of relevant in the industry, where someone could be like, oh, we're going to do this. Like, let's see if Darren's interested in this. And like heck yeah, like thanks for the opportunity. Let's try and pull this off. And it's but it's just great to be back on the race skis, be here and there a couple days, and just pass on some knowledge. I've been working a lot with like some youth. I actually get this big, actually I'm hosting a US ski team fundraiser coming up on the 19th of January. And I got 4, male athletes, 4 female athletes, and some I've been keeping in touch with, like RCS is going to be on there, Bryce Bennett, Jared Goldberg, Sam Morse, and then Breezy Johnson, been working with her a little bit, just staying in touch with her a little bit. And she's been crushing it on the World Cup, it's 3/3 so far, back-to-back races. And it's fun for me to get more involved and again, and pass on maybe some knowledge and doing some ski racing tips for posting just on little things, just how to be a little more prepared and get the most out of yourself. So
It's great for the sport because you have such a wealth of knowledge. And as you said way back in the beginning, that you have to learn a lot of these things the hard way. And if you have to learn them the hard way, you generally learn them better and you really know what you're talking about. So to be able to pass on and then obviously, you learned them well enough that you went on and won a whole lot. So if people don't want to listen to you, they're doing themselves a huge disservice.
well, it's like I have a lot. It's pretty cool because when I do bring some of this stuff up, there's a lot of engagement, and I get a lot of appreciation, which feels good. But the two that I tell everything what to do, my two own kids are the ones that blow me off the most. It's like you don't know what you're talking about or whatever. Like, all right, geez, like everybody else thinks I got something valuable to pass on. How come you guys don't listen? But it's at that age, it's fun. Like, we'll see where it goes. But it's just, to me too, like my ultimate, like my kids are racing. I want them to just get that foundation a little bit. And like, I'm ski touring with my son. I'm trying to get my daughter out, with us this year too. And just like, just do different things with them. I want to be able to like grow old with my kids and doing things I love to do still. And there's stuff that's like, I could out ski him right now, but I know it's not gonna be too much longer. But it's fun. It's fun to just have kids like that age or like really like learning like every month or two, like they get like so much better what they're doing. And
Cool to watch.
I'm just trying to hang on, Chris. It's
Well, you're
fun.
doing
It's fun to,
you're doing an amazing job, Daron. I mean, thank you so much. I looked at you forerunning the Hahnenkamm, and that blew my mind. I mean, I might think about possibly like forerunning a GS or something, but I can't even wrap my mind around running a downhill or let alone running the Hahnenkamm. So, but
yeah, well, I'm done with that, Chris. Did it, done it.
but you
But
did
I
it.
mean, I did for world champs at Beaver Creek too in 2015. So that was a really exciting moment to be back in the gate there too. So I've had some awesome opportunities that have popped up, and like I said, if something comes up, I'm gonna try and get myself, in the right like headspace and physically ready for something so I can do it. I still have that like desire.
Yeah. I mean, like Beaver Creek, you have to tuck on that flat for 30 seconds before the race starts effectively, right? And then, I mean, most people, if they're tucking for 30 seconds, even just in their living room, their legs are really starting to smoke. And then the race
Yeah,
starts.
yeah.
So for you to do that, that's awesome.
It's just like I said. I mean, it's what I did. I know that side of it too, and kind of know where I had to like let up a little bit to like save something for a section that was really demanding. But anyways, yeah, it's just still like living to ski, skiing to live, living it, man.
You're doing it great. You're doing it absolutely great.
Like
Well,
you.
thank you so much for joining us. For the audience, if you guys have liked this, please like us, please subscribe, please come back. We'll have more people like Daron who are just the experts in the experience of being human. This to me, I don't know about you, but I learned a ton just listening to Daron, and I want to get out there on the hill right now as a result of this. So Daron, thanks so much for joining us, man.
Thanks, Chris. And like last final word, just say find out what you're made of. Never be afraid of trying to find out what you're made of, and you don't know unless you give it a shot. So Yeah,
That's
I want to be back behind you, watching you like lay some turns over because you make the meanest arcs, dude. So fun to be out there in Deer Valley with you. I think we're gonna like not make it happen this year, unfortunately, but always love taking runs with you, man. Hope to do
it's a
it again.
mutual respect kind of thing. That's for sure. I love jumping in behind you and just turning my mind off and just trying to copy what you do. Skiing gets way better that way.
I appreciate you bringing me on board with this. This is great.